laughing. But I do have a question for Jason while we let Aditi finish setting up.
Yeah.
You know what? Screw it. I'll ask you later. We got Aditi. She's got a big cup of water. Aditi's
hydrated.
Hey, bro, that's the biggest.
My hair's a mess, but I did get my big glass of water.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, very good.
Bro, that's a gallon.
It's a cooler.
Boo.
We don't have an NHL team, so you
I know, but it's still their colors.
There's some people in
That's
Cleveland
city.
who root for the Penguins, aren't there?
Oh, come on now. Well, send me a cup. Oh,
All right.
wait. Can I show you guys the best picture ever?
Sure. I'd like to see that.
Aditi, if you
Yeah,
text it to me, we'll throw it on
it
tag
is-
board.
I want to know if Jason Lloyd
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
brought home Oreo.
Oh, do you? Oh, I forgot you took that. Yeah,
Can you see that?
I'm with Aditi's son.
No, but what are you doing there?
At Brown's training camp, it's a puppy.
And
it's a puppy.
Yeah, it was a puppy.
that's what they're doing to distract people at Brown's training
Oh, no, they
camp.
got every day. They be out there.
They got the adoption. Yeah.
They're like,
This
yeah,
is
but the
this
puppies.
Great program, guys. This is this great program. It's the Puppy Pound, and for 6 years now, they've been adopting puppies. Maybe even 7 years. They've been adopting puppies at training camp. And so this started back when I was at the NFL Network. I sat in the Puppy Pound for the first time in 2016, and it was sort of this running joke, are you ever bringing a puppy home to your son? So I brought my son to camp on a day that Jason was there, and Nico wanted to bring a puppy home, but he was afraid to hold it, right?
Wouldn't hold the puppy?
We tried everything, and Nico would not hold the
So
puppy.
you haven't brought a puppy home, though?
No, we didn't, because he said the puppies smelled. And I said, yes, puppies do tend to smell. And he was afraid the puppy was going to pee on him. And I said, yes, babies and puppies, they do occasionally pee on you.
Very logical
But
kid.
that one, that puppy, Oreo, I should actually text it to Mikey so he can put it up properly.
Yeah.
But that puppy was just in love with Jason. He was like snuggling him.
I almost brought the puppy
because
home.
Jason smells like food.
He probably smells like French fries,
I almost wound up bringing that puppy home. I sent a picture to my wife.
But he was so serene, right?
Yeah,
like he was
See, that-
snuggled up
well,
on you,
that's
as happy as could be.
That is a great program that I was unaware of, and I think that's really cool. And it's just it always baffles me, the Browns like marketing stuff, because they do some things so well. Like that's such a great program, and then they also come up with a slogan like "Play like a Brown."
Yeah,
do you remember that slogan?
Remember the Hardland one?
Hardland, like
it's awful.
They must have different people there working in different
or
areas.
screwing up the dog pound banner and having it in the wrong order.
The Browns
the
are
orange is oranger.
The Browns are really a feast or famine organization.
It's 100%.
Half the people working there are like brilliant.
Yeah.
The other half are morons. Let's be honest.
I'd say we're more starving though than satisfied.
That's true.
Overall.
By the way, so Aditi and her family came to my house for dinner with my family.
Yes.
We had a great time. I took her. We went for dinner. We had dinner at our
I live
house.
10 minutes away. My family's never been invited over.
We'll invite you over.
She lives one state over.
Yeah, that's true.
I see where I rank.
But, and then we went out for ice cream at Mitchell's after.
I've never gone to
Aditi
ice
didn't
cream
get any
with
ice
Bull.
cream. She didn't get any ice cream. Everybody else had ice cream.
Oh my gosh, I ate both of my kids' leftovers.
That's true. That's fair.
So Bull gets a cone that's like as big as my head.
Yeah.
You know,
Shocking.
Shocking, right?
Yeah, they call that
And
the
then
bowl.
it's like all this ice cream in it. And Bull's son, by the way, Aaron, who is just like the nicest little young boy and young man. And he gave my son football cards that Nico is now obsessed with. And unfortunately, Adam, like I don't spend enough money. Now I have to spend more money on football cards because Aaron introduced him to them. But anyway, Bull gets this massive ice cream cone. Aaron, who's this, 9-year-old, gets like all this ice cream. I insist that my kids get only the junior cups. They get the junior cups, and neither of them finished their junior cups. I knew I was going to be eating their leftovers.
That's true. You did.
My husband did get a mega peanut butter milkshake, though, and he sucked down every last drop of that.
It's delicious. But the reason I brought it up is because we have a dog. I can't remember, did your son interacted with the dog a little? Actually, you and your daughter were sitting with my wife in the den, and my dog kind of snuggled up with you guys a little bit.
Yeah, my daughter was actually much better at petting your dog and really excited to be. Nico likes the idea of a dog.
Yes.
But I think that, the actual reality of the dog, and it was crazy because in the puppy pound, Jason could tell you this, he kept saying, can we adopt this puppy? Can we take this puppy home? Can we take this puppy home? I'm like, we're not taking a puppy home if you won't even hold it.
Right.
In the car on the way home. It's like, but mommy, if we brought a puppy home, we would give it baths, right? So like it would smell, right?
Dogs get smelly. You got to give them a lot of baths.
When I was growing up, we couldn't even go in the grocery store. And you better not ask for nothing, let alone get in the dog. A living
Seriously,
creature?
G, let me tell you.
Oh my God! I have to warn my son every time I take him to the grocery store. I'm like, don't ask for anything. Don't ask for anything. I will get you some things.
No,
Don't
like,
ask for anything.
It's funny that you bring this up because this is actually revealing from the TMI department. This is a major point of marital discord in our house because I think that, I mean, neither my husband nor I grew up the way that we live. Neither of us were, my husband's father very sadly died when he was 2 years old. My parents were, immigrants that worked.
Right.
And so we played with cardboard boxes, but we now have the ability to buy our kids all these things that come in cardboard boxes. And by the way, they just still play with the cardboard boxes.
Yes.
And I get so angry that every single time they go to the store, they think that they're getting something.
Exactly.
And that every single time my husband runs to Walmart or Target, the kids come home with something. And just the other day, Matt said to me, he's like, I really have a hard time saying no to them. And I said, get over it.
Yeah, you have to.
He was like, hold on, let me show you how to do this. Kids, come down here. Hey, no. We didn't ask for anything, Mom.
It's not good for
Just
kids.
no.
It's not good to spoil.
No, G, they are always asking for something.
Yeah.
I mean,
To your point, we just had this conversation because my kids are on the swim team, and we went to a Guardians game Saturday night, and the seats were like, upper deck. And we're talking about we're going to the game, and they're like, oh, are we sitting behind the plate like we usually do? It's like, no. They said, oh, are we in that suite? Because they sat in like the Matt Colleague suites, the really nice suites at one of the games. Are we sitting in the suites? I'm like, no. You're sitting where I sat when I was a kid. You're going to the upper deck, and you're going to like it. It's like they live so much differently than what we did. Like just getting a one game a year was such a huge deal.
Right. My kid stays in these like 5-star resorts. I was at a Days Inn or a Motel 6. Does Motel 6 even exist anymore?
A Howard Johnson.
Days Inn and Econo Lodge were my favorite hotels as a kid. That's where we stayed on vacation. Days Inn and Econo Lodge.
I went to one vacation in 15 years as a kid. One.
It's
unbelievable.
But you know what? Like this does bring it back. I think that perspective, it's funny. I'll give you a football story. So Callie Brownson, as you know, the Browns assistant wide receivers coach and Kevin Stefanski's chief of staff, was just the head coach of the women's national team at the International American Football Federation, whatever the whole name of that is. But she won a gold medal twice overseas as a player. She's the first female head coach. She coached this team to a gold medal, and she came home like a week and a half ago. And we were talking about it, and I said, okay, so what was like the biggest takeaway from the experience? How are you a different coach now, having done that? And she said the biggest difference was that in the NFL, you just get so used to having things handed to you, taking things for granted. And these women literally paid $3,500 each just to have the ability to compete in this world championship.
Yeah.
And she said it just reminds you, like people who love the game so much that they'll sacrifice for the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And you come back and everything's sort of handed to you, and you are enabled to believe that, anything can be given to you and whatever, it's your birthright. She said it just changes perspective. And so I said to my husband, actually, I need to start getting Nico back to like a soup kitchen or volunteering at a homeless shelter so he sees the kids that don't have every single Lego that was ever made on the planet. And that's what will, I think, ultimately bring it back. It's not just saying no, it's actually recognizing how fortunate you really are and that there are people that would love to switch places with you.
Aditi, there was a question that I wanted to ask you on Tuesday that we didn't have time for, and I was wondering about. When you were on the sidelines, I imagine you have to be able to get a vibe for what is going on with the players and how they're feeling and whatnot. I mean, with all the Deshaun situation going on, the uncertainty of quarterback, there's just a kind of a weird pall on the team. I want to know if that's coming through on the sidelines, and if they seem friendly, or they seem chipper, they seem upbeat, or is there sort of like some uncertainty down there?
It's so weird to say this, but there truly isn't. And in fact, I made that point a week ago that Kevin Stefanski loves to say, control what you can control. And Kevin Stefanski is as level as can be. Every day is basically the same. And let me tell you, Jacoby Brissett is the same. And I very specifically asked, was he any different last week when he finally kind of got the team and took the majority of the first team reps, and everybody knew that he's the starter for at least 11 weeks. And Kevin Stefanski said, no, he's the same. I asked Jacoby Brissett about it. He said, I have to be the same. Like, I've been in so many situations, and I really think that this team knew it was coming and has really just bought into that mentality. And I'll tell you, I was there all week. I was there the day the settlement came in. I was there the day after. I was there for the joint practices with the Eagles. I
look like Tag.
Well, I think Aditi froze.
I don't think, like, you talk about a pall over the team. I don't think the team internally really feels that way. Really, truly.
That's really something. The quarterback's the leader of the team. Do you see them rallying behind Jacoby Brissett?
I mean, I do. And I think that it's really, I think in this situation, credit also goes to Deshaun in the sense that the two of them have been very, sure, Deshaun is the one that took everybody to the Bahamas, right? Yes, he is going to be the starting quarterback for the foreseeable future whenever it is that he's back. But something as simple as when the two of them are on the sideline and a defensive player has a great play, they go over together to high five the player. And I was watching Deshaun very carefully. He's very careful not to step in front of Jacoby Brissett. Like, they were always in line with each other when they're congratulating people coming off the field. I think one time I saw Deshaun get to somebody first was Josh Dobbs after that crazy touchdown when his shirt was ripped this past week. And just, everybody was laughing. It was sort of that moment. But otherwise, I think that, I don't want to say Deshaun is deferring, but I think that they are kind of trying to be co-leaders because that's what is called for at this moment. And Deshaun knows he's not going to be around the team starting August 30th for a good 2 months or a month and a half, whatever the math works out to be.
Yeah. Aditi,
at least in the building, you know?
Right. Aditi, we were talking about this before the show, and we're going to get to this conversation later. We were talking, because Myles Garrett, he's a very confident guy, as we all know. And when we talk about the NFL Top 100, he says he should be number one on the list. Now, I don't even think he's number one on the Browns because if I were – now, again, obviously quarterback is more important than pass rusher or running back. But if you said to me personally, who is the best player on the Browns, my answer would be Nick Chubb. I would have Myles 2. I would have Deshaun Watson 3. I would have Bitonio 4. Kareem Hunt 5. Denzel Ward 6. And then probably Wyatt Teller and Amari Cooper 7 and 8. I don't know. You don't need to go that deep. But what do you think? Who is, again, I know Deshaun Watson.
Did we have this conversation?
Off the air, on the air, we did. Maybe a while ago.
I don't know.
We weren't all at dinner with you guys.
Maybe.
It was over ice cream.
No, because I'll bring Nico back into this. We were on a trip. We had gone to Hershey Park and we're driving home, which is, 3.5 hours or so. And we're in the car and Nico asks us while his sister is sleeping, can you tell me the best player on every team? Mm-hmm. And so Matt and I were running through every team and, some we disagreed on, like the Steelers. Matt and I disagreed. The Browns.
What did you guys say? Wait a second. What did you guys say?
Well, Matt said for the Steelers, TJ Watt, and I said Cam Hayward.
Oh, you're right.
Thank you.
All right, well,
but in any case, when
go
it came to the Browns, Matt and I both simultaneously said Nick Chubb. And so we both agreed that the best player in our minds was Nick Chubb on that team. And then after the fact, I had to think, it's weird I didn't think of Myles Garrett, but it really was Nick Chubb that came to mind first.
Here's why I think Nick Chubb.
I do agree with you. And we didn't have like a heavy discussion about it. I guess if I'd have to think about it right now, I don't know. The pass rusher does affect every play. Yes. I love defense. I think defense drives games for sure. But I also think a running back like Nick Chubb is just spectacular and special in so many ways, can do so many different things for you. It's very, very hard to see him contained, much less held down or stopped. I mean, I think that the toughest sledding I've seen him go through the last however many years was that game against the Steelers last year, that 15-10 game, where the Steelers absolutely sold out to stop the run, and Chubb was coming off injury anyway. Other than that, it's just he's so heady, he's so good, he's so hard to stop. It's almost like the only time he's beatable is when he's not on the field. And you've heard me scream how many times last year when there's 2 minutes left in the half or the game, just put more put Nick Chubb in. I don't care if the 2-minute offense is the Kareem Hunt offense. I don't disagree with you. Yeah. I don't. I might quibble with you as you get further down the list a little bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I'm putting Kareem Hunt ahead of Denzel Ward. I don't know that I'm doing that.
Somebody else. I just think statistically Kareem Hunt is not as productive in Cleveland because he's the number 2 running back. But the thing with me, ultimately, that separates, because I think Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb are both elite at their jobs. They're both in that elite class.
Yes.
The difference is, I think and obviously there's more stats for a running back than there is for a pass rusher, but I believe that Nick Chubb is more, even the greatest player, even Tom Brady, doesn't play at an elite level every single game. So there are some games where even the best player ever doesn't play great. I think Nick Chubb is more consistently elite than Myles Garrett is. That's why I have him ahead.
I think that I would agree with you on that one. And then you also think about impact on a game.
Definitely.
I mean, Nick Chubb, if he gets 20 carries and he is controlling the clock and he is moving the offense and he is churning out those yards, and he also does have an ability to be a game breaker. He can change the game with one play.
Right.
Let's go back to that Bengals game last year, right? It was Denzel Ward with that huge pick six, and then, of course, it was that massive Nick Chubb run. I mean, those sorts of plays change a game, and Myles Garrett occasionally does that. Occasionally, right? There's a sack, fumble, maybe touchdown, occasionally there's a sack that ends a drive. But I just think, to your point, Nick Chubb does that more consistently.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
You don't agree?
Okay.
No, you got Myles ahead of Nick Chubb.
Myles Garrett, to me, is, honestly, if you look at it, he might be the best defensive player that's already ever played for the Browns. Mm-hmm. Already. He's going to break the sack record this year for the Browns.
Right, but that doesn't – I don't disagree, but I don't think that makes him better than Nick Chubb.
Right.
Yeah, but do you think Aaron Donald is better than Myles Garrett?
Yes.
Definitely. Nobody's better than
Now, you also remember our best receivers of Browns history list, too. It doesn't always mean something just because he's the best one at that position.
Exactly.
So you think Myles Garrett's better than Nick Chubb?
Yes.
But you also said Nick Chubb is better than Emmitt Smith.
On raw skills, yes, I do.
Yeah, Aditi, I want you to hear this. G said that
on raw ability,
Nick Chubb is better than the greatest running back by yardage in the history of the game.
And mathematically,
Nick
that
Chubb is
also
better.
means that he thinks that Myles Garrett is a better football player than Emmitt Smith as well.
No. Emmitt Smith physically is not the most gifted running back, right? Emmitt Smith had a great offensive line, a great team, and he had longevity. You can't coach that. Longevity counts for something. Mm-hmm. However, if you line Emmitt Smith up and you line Nick Chubb up, and you said, all right, which one of those people have more agility, who's faster, who breaks more tackles, all these different things. You'd be hard pressed to find one trait that you would say Emmitt Smith has over Nick Chubb. Now, does that mean that he's just overall, according to the pantheon of time, better than Emmitt Smith? No, he got to prove it and he got to do it. But if you ask me physically, I would take Nick Chubb. Now when you talk about Myles Garrett, for me, I think the reason why I would say this now, I love Nick Chubb because I just said he's better than Emmitt Smith. Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about the effectiveness of a play, right? Myles Garrett has the ability to affect the game in multiple ways. He's an underrated run stopper. He already has the lead in sacks. So you say, look at 16 sacks. He also has 17, 18. These are just tackles for loss above and beyond that.
Right.
So my thing is, if you have Myles Garrett and you say who's going to be more pivotal and if the Browns can make the playoffs, which one would be more important?
Well, but by that question, Deshaun Watson, when he plays, would be number one. But I wasn't looking at it that way.
Oh, well, okay. So if Myles Garrett has a crazy for 11 games and he has 12 sacks in those 11, 13 sacks, that's gonna impact everything. Nick Chubb, yes, he's gonna impact it, but you still have Kareem Hunt and some other things. I think it's very close, but I would take the defensive end because I think a defensive end is more impactful than a running back. Not necessarily the fact that Nick Chubb is a great player.
I was taking the positional importance out of it for me.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I mean, honestly, with all of us, we're splitting hairs.
Yeah,
Debating who's better between Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like the, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward. Some teams, it's very obvious who the best player is, and others, I think, to your point, you are just splitting hairs in some ways. But
Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase?
Oh.
What?
Well, you have to take Burrow. Burrow makes everybody better.
No, but if we're taking positional importance out of it, is Joe Burrow a better quarterback than Jamar Chase as a wide receiver?
Jamar Chase is a top 6 receiver. Joe Burrow is a top 7 quarterback. You're literally splitting.
Okay. Here's the thing, guys, though. This is what the magic of football is. To G's point about Emmitt Smith and everything that he everyone that he played with and the offense that he played in, how much does that add to who he is? When you were talking about Emmitt Smith, I'm sitting there thinking about Le'Veon Bell. For a period of time, for about 5 years, Le'Veon Bell was considered one of the top, 2 or 3 running backs in the NFL.
Doubt.
But how much of that was because he was behind a veteran, mature, seasoned offensive line that was arguably one of the top 2 lines in the NFL that knew how to block for his style? How much of that was Antonio Brown, the best receiver on the planet, was drawing double and triple teams? How much of that was Ben Roethlisberger, a future Hall of Fame quarterback, having this amazing chemistry with Antonio Brown, and then also Juju Smith-Schuster, and then also for a period of time, Martavis Bryant, and everything that was going on? I mean, Le'Veon, yes, he sat out a year, and he got a little heavier, but he goes to the Jets, and he's not even average. He's below average.
Awful.
So is Le'Veon really that great a running back? Or was he in the most amazing situation for 5 years that we thought he was a top 3 running back? Now, Jamar Chase is a top 10 receiver, sure, regardless. But how much is Jamar Chase helped by the fact that he's playing with a guy that he's already put 5 years in with, that he's been repping with for 5 years, that he's got unbelievable chemistry with? How much is Jamar Chase helped by T. Higgins out there, who arguably is the number 1 receiver on his own? Remember, Jamar Chase went quiet for a good chunk of time last year. Defenses started playing him a little bit differently. He couldn't make do. All of a sudden, T. Higgins has a string of 100-yard games. And oh, by the way, Tyler Boyd had caught more passes in a row than anybody else in the NFL out of the slot last year. There was a period of time last year, it was probably like November-ish, all 3 of those receivers had 60-something catches. And I remember talking about this with Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, and he said that was the thing that he was most proud of, is that Joe Burrow wasn't just feeding Jamar Chase, he was actually feeding the open man. All 3 of them had the same number of receptions. Even though, of course, Chase had more targets, it was still the way that Burrow sees the field, the way that Burrow diagnoses who's open, the way Burrow can look guys open. So I don't think Jamar Chase, playing with Ben Roethlisberger last year, puts up the same numbers and is the same receiver.
No,
I think it really matters who he's playing with. And so I'd argue, and I'd also argue that Joe Burrow made everybody better.
I do agree, but Joe, if they had drafted Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase, I don't think the Bengals offense would have been as good either.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point, because the Bengals offensive line was horrific, and still this offense did what it did.
Yeah. By the way, in the Ravens, Lamar Jackson clearly the best guy. Sorry, go ahead.
We have another enormous Browns preseason game coming up, and we're going to get to see Jacoby Brissett for the first time. Any predictions as far as what we might see from him, and what are you going to be looking for out of him in particular?
Well, I think that they'll do their best to keep him safe. Right? I think that him being out there is more about the game operation, about having the headset helmet on having the plays sent in, on managing the huddle. We know that the Bears are playing their starters for a full half and that they'll be going full go. So I think that you'll probably see more ball control, more, sort of steadiness, making sure that everything is clean as opposed to let's light it up. I mean, but everybody wants to score. You feel good on that. So I don't know. I actually do have to jump because we have our production meeting shortly, and I'll probably learn a little bit more there. Or at least I hope we learn a little bit more. We're talking to Jacoby Brissett and Amari Cooper.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Aditi, have a great weekend. Yeah. We will talk to you soon. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Aditi.
Yes. Make sure you watch, and any feedback you have or any tips you have for my last preseason sideline.
I'm taking notes. Aditi.
All right, well, send them to me in real time so I can fix it. Just like the Surface tablet. I want to fix it for the next drive.
All over it.
All right.
I did text Aditi